Welcome to Disrupted Science, the occasional conversation between the authors of the upcoming book, How the Internet Disrupted Science, now available for pre-order. I'm Kent Anderson, here with my co-author Joy Moore, and today is Wednesday, April 8th, 2026. Hey, Joy.
Hey Kent, how's it going?
There we go. It's going okay. How's it going for you?
Pretty good. Um, I've got an update on the bluebirds for
Oh,
everyone who cares.
do tell. Do tell. We're getting some drama here.
Um, so they've ha I guess they've fledged. They're fledglings.
Okay, they've
They
hatched.
hatched, but they can't fly yet.
Yeah.
And so I can see their little fuzzy heads. But I learned
Uh-huh.
the other day, there's a lot of bird watchers in this area,
Mm-hmm.
particularly down at the river. And the other day I talked to a guy who's out there with his like big binoculars and his notebook, and I was like, "What are you looking at?" And he was counting turkey vultures,
Oh,
which are apparently important in ways that other vultures aren't. So I asked him
they're good
about my,
scavengers, yeah.
yeah, but yeah, I haven't looked into the turkey vultures. But anyway, I told him about my bluebird situation. He said it's illegal to disrupt their nest. And so
Mm-hmm.
I did touch it, but apparently once
We just
you,
had a confession, people.
yep, that's why I want to say that they're fine. I did peek in there. But yeah, you can't,
So you
it's
didn't really
against,
disturb them, you just visited them.
yeah, but I wasn't supposed to touch the nest at all.
Yeah, okay. Well,
So
we live and learn,
yeah. So anyway,
but they're
hopefully
okay. And how many
there,
are there, do you think? What's the head count, do you think?
well, there were six eggs, so
Okay.
I'll see how many make it out alive.
Yeah. Well, we're
So
we're hoping for 100%.
that's my update. And I hope they move somewhere else for next year. I don't want to do
I don't
this
know. It sounds
again.
like they got a pretty sweet deal there. They got protection, they got a nice warm light. It's like pretty awesome. I think you need to just embrace it and start and paint that light fixture as a birdhouse.
That's a good point. Yep.
Yeah, just
Okay.
embrace your fate. Don't fight it. We know that doesn't work. All right, so today we're talking with Susan Wise Bauer, whose latest book is The Great Shadow, and we'll introduce that in a minute. But you got to meet her.
I did. It was a few weeks back. She did a talk at the William and Mary Swim Library um, on a Friday evening, and so I got to see her present her book and take us through kind of the thought process. And I just found it super fascinating. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, Kent, you got to read this. We got to talk to her because she's giving us such great context for a lot of the things that we're talking about today. So,
Yep, yep, yeah. So do you just want to dive in?
mhm,
Okay,
let's.
so here we go. It's our talk with Susan Wise Bauer coming your way next on Disrupted Science. Susan Wise Bauer is a historian, an educator, an author, a farmer, and a publisher. She taught at the College of William and Mary for 18 years before taking up writing full-time on her family farm. We're here to talk with her today about her 2026 book, The Great Shadow, A History of How Sickness Shapes What We Do, Think, Believe, and Buy, published by St. Martin's Press. I reviewed it recently. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Lovely to meet you. So, we were really excited to get the opportunity to talk with you. A lot of what Kent and I focus on and what the audience for what we write and talk about are focused on funding for scientific research,
Mhm.
scientific and medical expertise are being questioned at scale, it, it, at levels that I don't, I haven't seen before, at least in this country. And at the same time, we're seeing that kind of space being filled by a lot of information and misinformation about
Mhm.
fears of unseen and unproven pathogens, and people are getting all, worked up about what we would normally have thought of as like, normal, hygiene and
Hmm.
what to eat and when to go to the doctor and things like that. And so when we came across your book, we were reassured and excited to find out that this is not new. And so can you please talk us through what is this all about?
Talk us off the ledge, Susan.
Dog. Well, I mean, I think that what we're seeing now in the whole Maha movement is it is a little bit of a corrective, a little bit of a pendulum swing. It's not a little bit of a pendulum swing. It's a little bit of a corrective. It's a huge pendulum swing. But
Hmm.
it's definitely a bit of reaction against the scientific certainties that really dominated us from
Hmm.
the invention of antibiotics up until really the emergence of new diseases such as AIDS, Marburg fever, Ebola, all those really, really scary things. There was about a 40-year period, and sometimes it's called the Pax Antibiotica, where medical science really seemed infallible.
Mhm.
It
Hmm.
did seem like we could conquer anything, we could do anything. And I think the medical, I'm going to use the sloppy phrase medical establishment, but certainly medical experts and way too many doctors took a godlike posture and said,
Hmm.
you do what we tell you and you will live. And what happened beginning in the 1980s, but really culminating in the COVID pandemic, was essentially, just to quote Jurassic Park, life will find a way, basically was, pathogens saying, nope, you don't have this. You are not gods.
Mhm.
And the pronouncements that you put out so confidently are not always true. And as a society, we had been so accustomed to accepting medical dictates
Hmm.
unquestioningly. And
Hmm.
listen, if I could just give you a little of my personal experience here. So I'm 57. My father was an emergency room physician and also a board certified pediatrician. So he was born in the 30s.
Mhm.
Let me tell you what, you did not question the doctor. You just
No.
you just didn't do it.
Right.
And he and I had a great relationship. When he died, we were on wonderful terms. But growing up, you did not question the doctor.
Hmm.
And that was how he had been taught. That was the culture that he had learned. And it's the culture that many of us, and those of us who are, maybe in our 40s and older, still that internalized was that you don't question medicine. So when medicine, and I think this is part of the reason why the pandemic turned out to be such like a big turning point, the pandemic kind of encapsulated that
Hmm.
disillusionment with the godlike posture of medicine into
Hmm.
one very short period.
Mhm.
So, the phrase, well, the CDC now says, kind of became a byword for,
Yeah.
well, you said you knew the answer, but clearly you didn't. And that, I think, is what really set the stage for the current surge in distrust of traditional medicine and the pursuit of alternative theories, alternative wellness, things that would have been easier to dismiss as quack before the pandemic.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it's an interesting time too from a information perspective because the other thing that was going on was a flood of information, the infodemic, right?
yep. Yep.
And so you had people assaulted on these computer terminals in their homes all
Hmm.
day,
Well,
Hmm.
they didn't
and
have
people
anything
didn't
else
have
to do
anything else to
other,
do.
yeah.
But just imagine if this had been, a different media environment,
Yeah.
right, where you didn't have that kind of thing going on. You may not have had so much doubt sown at the same time that you had a shocking turn of events in the health space, right?
Well, and we also had this massive breakdown in traditional mediation of information. So, as
Yep.
an educator, one of the things that I do, and I've taught college students for many, many, many years. So, one of the things I have to go through with them is how do you know whether something's been mediated, i.e., approved by someone with some expertise in the subject, and how do you know when it hasn't? And when I started teaching, which has probably been 25, 30 years ago now, it was fairly easy. We said if it's in a book or a journal, it's been mediated. And if it's online, it hasn't been, or online, whatever the equivalent was back then. And
Right.
that's just not even true anymore because you can self-publish a book. You can
Yeah.
self-publish a journal article even and make it really look good. So there's this responsibility on the part of people looking at information to dig a little deeper and say, who else has looked at this? Who else has passed it as accurate? Do those people have any financial interest in this information, which is another huge thing?
Hmm.
Um, and that is a very difficult skill to teach
Hmm.
people who are not actually in college. I mean, how do you actually get this across to the person sitting in front of their computer?
Yeah. Right. So there was a big opening there.
Yeah, huge,
Yeah.
huge. And
Hmm.
and what happened is that slickness, design, and good graphics started to replace expertise in terms of do I trust this or not?
Right. I'd like to
Yeah.
get your perspective on this too, because the other thing that in this online environment that was so different is its personalization level. Right. It used to be that when the doctor said something or C. Everett Koop said something, it was everybody received the same information and everybody was, felt some sort of equity about, we all got the same information.
Right.
But here you have all these filter bubbles and personalized spaces that can be exploited in different ways to fragment health information and emphasize some to some people and some to others and so on and
Yeah.
so forth.
Yeah, the siloing of information is something that's very difficult to overcome, and you have to make an active effort to do so. And it doesn't help that, and you guys would know more about this than I would, but it doesn't help that so much actual scientific study is, first of all, inaccessible because it's in paid journals. And so unless you're someone like me who has an academic connection, it's very hard to actually get into the journals and read it. And second, is written in such impenetrable prose that you can't figure out what on earth is going on, again, unless you've had a lot of practice in decoding it. So I feel like the more trustworthy information is both usually behind a paywall and inaccessible to non-experts, whereas the less trustworthy information is easily available and very attractive. And that's a
Yeah.
really big problem.
That's a massive problem, and it's it's what Kent and I are, it's kind of our raison d'etre
Hmm.
these days.
Hmm.
The the business models have changed.
Yep.
The impenetrable behind a paywall
Hmm.
content is content for people who are basically
Trained to
either
use it.
qualified, trained to
Hmm.
use it, and has somebody's paying the bills for them to get the information they need to do their jobs.
Right,
Right.
right.
And then the open access movement has created space for pay to publish
Hmm.
articles, with the promise that that's going to get you more exposure, it's going to
Hmm.
get you more clicks, and it's going to get you more, attention, and all of that. And so we've had a real shift in terms of what the public expects.
Hmm.
You can Google or you can go on different databases and find all sorts of free information that is medical, but it's probably not what your doctor's reading.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, that's very true. And just I just had a personal experience with this recently, which is I had a couple of attacks of vertigo, which I've never had in my life, and I
Oh,
wanted to
that's
find
awful.
it's terrible. It's terrible. I do not recommend it. Um, and I wanted to find out whether a medication that I'd been taking might have contributed to that.
Hmm.
Now, probably in the past, I would have just messaged my doctor. But when I message my doctor, I don't hear back for weeks. And so I went digging to find out whether there'd been any causal connection shown between the two. And what I were looking for were statistics. And the only way that I found it was to use my, paid academic subscription to medical journals
mhm.
and
Hmm.
search them. So, I mean, how many people who are not academics have that access or know how to do it or know how to read
Well,
the
I think this is
statistics when they find them?
this is another thing that I think has created the level of mistrust or the corrective, desire for a corrective is the United States especially has a broken healthcare system,
Yeah.
right? It's financed poorly. It's too expensive. It should be single payer. And your doctor, you should make it, you should have a doctor that responds within 24 hours to a
Yeah.
message on my chart or whatever you're using. But I wanted to return to something in the book and about COVID, because when I was reading the book, I would sometimes think maybe darkly that you were taking some historical delight in pushing some statistics out, like the amount of carnage that various epidemics and pandemics wrought throughout history.
Yeah.
I mean, the body count in
Yeah.
this book makes John Wick and, the 28 Days Later look like amateurs.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I-
it's just amazing how much death and distress humans dealt with back during the early days of overcrowding and population growth.
I don't know that I was taking delight in it necessarily, but I, one of my motivations in writing this book actually came out of my work on another book series that I was doing for W.W. Norton at the time, which was this History of the World series. Whereas it's this huge project, which I should never have taken on, but my longtime editor at Norton, Starling Lawrence, who just died recently, he's kind of a legend in the publishing world, was really excited about it, and he and I worked together on it. And it turned out to be, a good experience, although I'm still 2 volumes away from the present. But anyway, I'm doing this narrative world history. And when you're doing a narrative history, you're looking for the human story, right? You're not just you're looking for the experiences of people. And I was just repeatedly shocked by how many people died from trivial things, from
Right.
splinters and sore throats and stubbed toes
Yeah.
and random aches, and then they die.
Yeah.
And as a narrative historian, you want to enter into the experience of living in the time. You don't want to export your present experience back on that. And I just kept thinking, to live in a world where you know that if you stub your toe in the morning and it's sore, you might die, got to change the way you think about everything else in the world. Right?
Yeah.
And you also do the flip side, which is nice. You kind of say, some of the chapters start out. So you wake up in the morning and you've got your normal aches and pains. And so you decide to take,
Yep.
some
Pop
Tylenol
a
or
couple
whatever.
of Advil, yeah.
And it's, just to kind of remind us how nice we have it. And yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's an important aspect of where we are now, particularly when you look at anti-vaccination sentiment, particularly when people start questioning the polio vaccine, for God's sake.
Oh, geez.
You have to realize that these are people with no historical perspective, that these are people with no imaginative understanding of what it was like to live during the years when there was no polio vaccine. And that's part of what I try to do in the book.
Yeah. So I was at the American Academy of Pediatrics when the Andrew Wakefield paper came out.
Oh, interesting.
And yeah, so I was running the journals there. And so I was in the midst of pediatricians all the time. And by the way, emergency medicine and pediatricians are my 2 favorite specialties. So your dad and I probably would have vibed. But
You probably would have.
yeah, but anyhow, but I remember one of the executive leaders who was a pediatrician just being dismayed because he could see the writing on the wall. And he said, vaccines have been so effective, nobody remembers iron lungs. They don't remember the crutches. They don't remember the quarantines. They don't remember the school shutdowns. They don't remember any of this, and they're going to be shocked.
I mean, when I was a child, all my elderly relatives still called the local swimming pool the polio pit.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah. But I think a lot of vaccine skeptics are younger people. They're, in their 20s and in their 30s, and that memory has faded.
Right, and they think it's cool and transgressive to be anti-establishment.
And
or whatever,
also,
or they've
and
been
there are
convinced.
also the younger parents, right? Who
Yeah.
have, and so that's the slice of demographics that it's the people who are first-time parents who don't know what came before and are being barraged with crazy ideas.
Yeah, but you also do a really good job in the book of kind of sympathizing with, I mean, because every bit of evidence about vaccines' effectiveness is circumstantial, really.
Yeah.
know, until you got the tools to actually look at
Until you get the tools to look at it.
But with Jenner and everything else, it was like, boy, somehow that the cowpox thing worked,
Yeah, no,
but it's invisible.
it's like that. It's like that cartoon that has all the equations on one side, and then in the middle it says, and then a miracle occurred, and then there's an equation on the other side, and the one scientist is saying to the other, "I think you need to be a little more specific here." But it's a great New Yorker cartoon.
It is.
But but the fact that that's where vaccines started is a really difficult scientific phenomenon to grapple with, because I mean, Jenner had no idea why the vaccine worked. Nobody had any idea why the vaccine worked. His study, quote unquote study, I'm doing bunny ears, about why the vaccine worked was simply a list of people who said they had cowpox and didn't get smallpox. That was it. That was it. And it was all self-reporting.
I've got the receipts.
Yeah, exactly. But out of that grew this immensely valuable and effective medical technology, but it did not start well, you know? So it's difficult sometimes to look at current trends and say, well, but there's no proof for this, without having to admit that, yeah, but there wasn't any proof for that either, you know?
Yeah.
Right. And this is one of the things that Joy and I talk a lot about. There's a difference between the gap between science and technology is especially huge when it comes to LLMs and AI, because they can't discover things like that. Right. They aren't out in the world and kind of observing things and saying, the treetops look different this year. I wonder why that is. And let's go back. And, they can't hypothesize. They can't generalize. They can't conceptualize. So, yeah, and very interesting stuff.
And then at the same time, we've got this huge demographic shift. So I'm glad you mentioned C. Everett Koop. I haven't thought about C. Everett Koop in years, but when I was a kid,
Those are the days.
he was the most trusted figure ever. I mean, he looked like Edmund Gwynn in Miracle on 34th Street. He had this whole just aura of being trustworthy around him. And if you look
Scientific soldier Santa.
Yes, exactly. And then you compare him with Casey Means, who is a young woman.
How far we've fallen.
A young woman deeply invested in the wellness industry, who has not finished her residency.
No, she's a dropout. She's a medical dropout.
But that is the shift. And I don't even think we can say, with all due respect, Kent, I don't think we can say how far have we fallen. I think we just have to say how far have we shifted.
Fair enough.
Just demographically.
Yeah. And in our minds and all of that. But I think, one of the things that you do so nicely too is you talk about what we buy and how the world is made has changed. And you structured the book into 5 acts of sickness.
Yeah.
I'll skip that play, but it goes from ancient Greece to Febreze.
Yep.
Right. And so kind of as you went through that framing, what kind of surprised you as you went through that?
I guess, I don't know if it surprised me, but I was continually struck by how sticky Hippocratic theory is. Right. So one of the big transitions that we have is Hippocratic theory. Well, actually, I'll just do 3 acts just to keep it simple here. In ancient times, we thought about illness as an entity that visited us from the outside, a thing, usually a supernatural thing, something sent by a demon or a god. And that's what made us sick. The shift in the Hippocratic and Galenic days is that we lose the sense of illness as a thing, as an ontological being, something that has an existence apart from us. The smallpox virus would exist whether or not we looked at it. It's not a Schrodinger's thing about it. It's a separate thing. In the Hippocratic years, centuries, millennia, what happens is that sickness becomes this mix of places, airs, and waters, is what Hippocrates said. Right. Where we live, what we breathe, what we eat and drink, what our habits are, and how each one of our individual bodies responds to that. So there's no such thing as an illness. There's just illness, but that illness is incredibly individual to us. and how we interact with the world. So we lose this sense during the Hippocratic centuries of disease as an outside thing.
Mm-hmm.
With the rise of germ theory, we return to that ancient idea that sickness is outside of us, is caused by an entity that is not inherent in us. Except now that instead of a god or a demon, it's a germ. It's a virus, it's a
Right.
bacteria, but
Right.
it's,
We can describe it precisely.
but what we have to remember is that Hippocratic theory was with us for 2,000 years, during which we developed all of our customs that we still hold to in modern times. All of our great literature, from before the 20th century is all Hippocratic, so when Beth dies in Little Women, that's a very Hippocratic death. She just kind of fades away because it's something inherent in her, and they keep taking her to the seashore and trying to, fix nobody ever says, well, probably tuberculosis, you need an antibiotic.
Right.
Right. But that's the literature that we absorbed, and the customs that we still follow all come from this Hippocratic era, right? And that has just
If you sneeze, I'll bless you.
clung. Yes, exactly. Listen, and I say this in the book. I don't know. All of us with children at some point have said, put on a coat or you'll catch a cold.
Right.
Well, we know that that's not how it works.
You're right.
But so much of our metaphor, so much of our language is still bound up with this. So I think what you see in the ascendancy of Maha and wellness culture generally is just how sticky that Hippocratic tradition is, and just how much it's still with us, even in the present day, because that rhetoric still has so much power.
Well, and you mentioned, it's interesting that you mentioned it in the context of narratives that have existed that we still read, right? Because what Maha is doing is constructing a narrative,
Right.
right? They aren't looking for outside scientific discoveries to inform their policies. They're creating a narrative to drive their policies that fit with that. So it makes sense in a way that they would embrace a known narrative and use some of the techniques from that to move theirs forward.
And I think there's a difference between, and Susan, let me know if you agree, between if I tell you I can't come have coffee with you today because I'm sick, that's a temporary thing. But if you
Right.
say if I say I have an illness, that is a longer term, kind of more entrenched, potential state of being. And what we're hearing from the Maha crowd is they're saying America is sicker than ever, while they're ignoring illnesses that are ongoing, require research, require funding, and things like that. And so
Right.
I think there's like they're preying on this idea of like you might be sick, but you could just get better if
But you
this
can have
or that.
wellness, right?
Yeah, and
We'll
so
just ignore illness.
illness is one thing, but you can either be sick or well.
Yes, and there's a really heavy moralistic slant to this. Um, so that this also is part of Hippocratic theory, is that if you manage your health properly, if you manage yourself properly, if you eat right, if you do everything right, then you won't get sick. So if you're sick, clearly you've done something wrong.
That's exactly right. I remember, my dad would say, "Why are you coughing? What, you didn't wear a hat yesterday?" Like,
Uh-huh. Oh, and it went beyond that. My mother, who I love dearly, I lost both my parents in the same year, so I'm still like, I still remember these things really clearly. My mother used to say I used to get horrible spring colds, partly because I was teaching freshmen. I mean, and they cough on you, and then that's it. So I would get these horrible spring colds, and she would always say, "Well, you're working so hard, you're so stressed, and you're so busy," and it always made me feel incredibly condemned. Right? That if I were just taking better
if you
care
had
of
a better
myself.
constitution,
Yeah. Well, no, not even that. If I just
Slow down.
slowed down, yeah, like it was a choice,
Yeah.
then I
Well,
wouldn't
you've
be
got
sick.
Susan Sontag's illness as metaphor too, and
Yeah,
all of
no,
that.
exactly, and that's such a brilliant essay that she wrote. I'd recommend it to everyone. But so that moralism is a huge part of Maha and wellness culture.
Mm-hmm.
But it's got a really, really dark side, which is, people in this country who are poor and who are people of color because of decades of deprivation are much more likely to have certain illnesses. And that makes it very easy to dismiss funding for work on those illnesses, funding for treatment of those illnesses. I mean, why are we still paying what we're paying for insulin? Well, because you ate too much junk food. So it's your own fault, and this isn't even subtle. It's been said outright by numerous figures in the administration, including Donald Trump. Why should we pay?
It ties back to the whole welfare queen stuff of the Reagan era and all that.
Yeah, but it's been going on in conservative rhetoric for a long time that if you get sick, it's your own fault. Now, look, the problem with this is, of course, there's a grain of truth in it. If you smoke a pack of cigarettes a day and then you get lung cancer, yes, your choices had something to do with your outcome.
Right.
But it's just not that simple for everyone suffering from chronic illness to just say, well, eat better. I mean, I'm in a rural county out here. Charles City County, which is between Williamsburg and Richmond, has no stoplights. We're a food desert. There is $1 General.
I was going to say, I know exactly where you are. And that is, So do you grow all your own food?
Well, I mean, we do, but I have a 100-acre farm that I inherited from my white parents, and not everybody is that privileged.
Right.
Right.
So,
Right.
Yeah.
So let's go through a few things because your book is so chock full of great things. Do you mind if I run the list with her, Joy?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So we're going to do a kind of a speed round with you. Okay.
Okay.
You can say whatever you want about each one of these. I know what I want you to say, but we'll see. We'll see. So, all right. So 1, Kleenex.
Kleenex. Don't put a cold in your pocket.
Right. That's a great line, isn't it?
It's a great advertising slogan. Yeah. Yep. So Kleenex, actually, a lot of the technology that we now use in wellness or illness related things came out of World War II inventions. So it was a matter of, there was all this stockpiled military stuff that they had to figure out how to use. So Kleenex was actually first marketed. Oh, I'm sorry. This was a speed round. I was supposed to be fast.
No, keep going. Keep going.
Okay. So it was actually first marketed as a makeup remover.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Mostly to women. And then some advertising genius figured out that with germ theory, this comes at a time when germ theory was now widely accepted, but we didn't have any antibiotics. So it put us for about 30 years into this sort of worldwide panic where you knew what was making you sick. You just couldn't do anything about it once you got sick. So the only thing you could do is protect yourself from the germs. So, and tuberculosis is still very prevalent at this time. So people used handkerchiefs to blow their noses when they got sick or to cough spittle into. And as germ theory became more accepted, the recommendation for what you did with those handkerchiefs was, I'm not kidding you, wash them 3 times, boil them, and then lay them out in the sun. So that takes a freaking lot of time, right?
You need a lot of hankies while one batch is drying.
I know. Well, because nobody knew exactly what would kill a germ. So
right.
It was sort of
We're killing dead 3 times.
A maximalist recommendation. Yeah. So some advertising executive at whatever Kleenex's parent company was at the time.
Kimberly-Clark.
Kimberly-Clark. Yeah, that's it. Figured out that these, makeup removers, you could blow your nose in them and throw them away.
Yeah. And you don't want to carry a cold in your pocket.
And you don't have to wash the handkerchief.
Right. And you have to buy cases of them every week.
Exactly.
For the rest of your life.
Obsolescence begins.
For the rest of your life. So, but I mean, at the time, it was kind of a win-win because the women who were absorbing the weight of washing these things 3 times and then boiling them didn't have to do that anymore. And, Kimberly-Clark made a boatload of money.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned tuberculosis. I have a copy of a 1908 JAMA here. And I was leafing through it the other day because it was rainy and crappy out, and I looked at it, and the back of it is full of ads for sanitariums.
Sanitariums. When I had 4 children under the age of 10, I used to long to be sent to a sanitarium.
Yeah.
It sounded so blissfully.
Enneagram. I think I've got the vapors. I got to go.
I know.
All right. So one of the other things that there are a lot, we've got a long list, so we got to cruise. I hope I have this right. So delegation, how physicians evolved out of acolytes at temples.
Ah, yep. Um, so back in the days of the Greeks and the Romans, if you got sick, you went to the temple to ask the priest to intercede with you, with the gods, and find out who you had angered and why and how to make it better. And the priest would, inquire of the god and then make a recommendation to you. Over time, what happened is they started to accumulate data. And their assistants in particular are in charge of, sort of keeping up with all of the recommendations and which ones worked and which ones didn't. And so these recommendations, which were not, they were kind of more like common sense recommendations, began to have some effect on people's health. And so the acolytes are sort of the first scientists. They're the first ones who are collecting data, collating it, and trying to, say, well, should this particular complainant with the sore stomach, should they go spend the night in the abattoir with the slithering snakes, or should they go home and, and have some beef broth? Yes,
right.
exactly.
Yeah, and so they check whether or not
but
they
then,
died.
But they could also take the workload off of the priest, right?
Yeah,
they could intercede. And so it reminded me of like nurse practitioners and physicians.
A little bit. Yeah, a little bit. Although that's sort of the very, very earliest root of modern medicine. What's interesting to me is that the doctors who evolved out of that have held on to the priest-like attributes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it definitely struck me as an echo. It's like, I've heard that note before.
Yeah, most definitely.
All right. Do you mind if I press on, Joy?
Yeah, go ahead.
This one I loved, and I want to hear what you have to say about it because I could only infer the English sweat.
Oh, the English sweat is the most fascinating disease. So it comes on you suddenly. And actually, descriptions of the symptoms are like so varied as to be useless. But basically, you start to sweat and then you die. That is.
But you have to be English, mostly.
Yes. Well, that's the most interesting thing about
it.
Is that it really did seem to affect mostly the English.
Mm-hmm.
Not as exclusively as contemporary accounts would have you believe, because people of other nations did get this sickness. But it was widely believed that there was one type of body that was susceptible to it, and that was an English body.
Mm.
Yeah. And then it disappeared. So we still don't know what it was, but it certainly cemented the Hippocratic idea that certain kinds of bodies were more susceptible than other kinds of bodies to certain ailments.
Yeah. Well, I have a personal theory. I think the English have adapted because as an American in England, with all the fire doors shut and all the windows shut, every time I go there, I'm just sweaty. And they're okay.
Yeah, and they're
so they've
dry
evolved.
as paper. Yeah.
Well, you do actually see this impulse. Impulse was alive and well. It's still alive and well because, again, if we go back to our current administration, our president has blamed immigrants for all kinds of diseases because they have different kinds of bodies. So this has not gone away. But one of the things I found somewhat entertaining is that when syphilis first emerged, the Germans called it the French disease, and the French called it the English disease, and the English called it the French disease. So, yeah, that's been going on a long time.
A lot of finger pointing. Yeah. All right. I got
Oh,
you want to jump in with one?
Okay. We got to talk about the library books and
the great library book panic.
I learned about this a few years ago on a podcast, and it just kind of blew my mind. I had no idea.
Well, here again, you're in this particular historical era where we know that germs cause disease, but again, we don't have any defenses against it. The only defense is avoidance. And because no one is completely sure how germs spread, the blame for the germs, well, I think there's a list in the book of all of the different things that people thought could carry germs. Dust was actually the biggest one. So a lot of our current housekeeping technology stems from the days when it was thought that if you didn't get rid of all the dust, you were going to have germs in your house because this is probably where the germs lived. But there was a librarian in New York who died of tuberculosis despite having none of the Hippocratic predispositions, healthy family, all this stuff. There's a whole list. Good heirs, responsible
Right.
living, and she died anyway. And the theory was that she'd caught it from a library book. Because, lots of unsavory people borrowed library books.
And they
They were
touched
touching
them
them.
and they might have sneezed on them.
They might have. And so there's this
Their
whole
dust from their house got in them.
exactly.
Yeah.
So there's this whole period where, first of all, you couldn't borrow a library book unless you could prove that your family was healthy. So there was like a medical test for borrowing a library book. And then when library books were returned, librarians did this whole would put them in a sealed container with sulfur. And leave them
Quarantine them.
overnight. Yeah, they'd quarantine the books. Yeah, it's. But we're laughing, okay? But I don't know if you remember, but in the first months of COVID, when my
No.
parents, who were elderly, had groceries delivered, I would go outside and spray them off with
Oh,
Lysol
yeah.
because
Yeah.
we didn't know.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when, and I have always been interested in medical history, so this was a little bit geeky of me, but I remember when the first reports of this strange illness spreading came out, I bought all of the kids a case of gloves, and I said, when you put gas in your car, put the gloves on,
Yeah.
because we just don't know,
Mhm.
Yep.
So we'd still do this.
Okay, I'm going to do one more, and then we should probably move on, since given the time. But I can tell we could talk with you all day. So, so is it okay if I pick the next one, the last one, Joy?
Yep. I'm trying to figure out which one it's going to be. Go ahead.
Copernicus and corpses is how I labeled it in here.
Copernicus and corpses. Oh man, this is a hard one to do briefly, but let me try. So, Copernicus and Galileo, let's give him some credit too,
Yep.
are obviously the drivers of this theory that the Earth is not at the center of the universe.
Right.
Right. That the Earth is instead rotating another body. And I mean, it's easy to sort of be scornful about the amount of fear that greeted this theory, but it was a huge shift in how we thought about ourselves. We were to not be the center of the universe, to not be the crown of creation, to not be the reason why everything else existed. So moving the Earth out of the center so that it's circling something else is at the center, is a massive ideological shift, which was very, very unsettling, particularly in an era which in Europe is primarily Christian and believes that, man was created as the apex of everything that God was doing, right?
Right. Creation. Yep.
There's no sense of us as one planet among many.
Right.
Right. So to move from being, I guess it's a little bit like, a little bit like when, you're an only child and then a sibling is born and you're
Right.
like, wait,
what?
what? I am not the center of everyone's attention anymore.
Right.
But I mean, that really is sort of the emotion that goes into it. So when sort of simultaneously we have the rise in dissection, and particularly public dissections. Public dissections are really fascinating things. There's it's like Super Bowl stadiums full of people
Right.
Yeah.
watching an anatomist dissect an executed criminal.
Right. And listening.
Listening.
The dissections are noisy.
Well, and the surgeon's aides used to carry around like flat trays of organs, like popcorn trays, like up
This
through the
This
crowd.
this is what a kidney looks like.
Here comes
Yeah,
the liver.
yeah. Here it comes, so that people could see them.
Right.
So
This is what's in you.
yeah. Well,
But that's the thing, right?
well, and this is an age where people are not nearly so far away from the origins of meat as we are. Everyone there has seen a cow butchered or seen a pig butchered or done it themselves, right?
Right.
And the human body on a dissection table does not look that different from a cow or a pig. It's the same basic. I live on a farm here. We just took down a cow day before yesterday.
Yep.
It's not that different. So there's that same dislocation, that same shift in, we are not as extraordinary as we thought. We're not as unique as we thought. We have way more in common with these animals than we thought. Yeah. So there's sort of a simultaneous dislocation going on there, which drives a lot of fear and reaction, but also a lot of innovation.
Yep. Yep. Thank you for tackling that one. I know it's a complicated and subtle one, so I
Well,
appreciate
I've
that.
I've oversimplified a bit, but it's definitely worth looking into if you're interested.
Yeah,
Yeah, and you know
get the
what?
book. Get the
Everyone
book.
should read the book.
Yeah.
Well, my publisher would much appreciate that.
All right. Joy, do you have other questions?
Um, no, I just want to say thank you for writing this book. We learned a lot, and you conclude it with, understanding the past is at least a step in the right direction, and that's
Hmm.
something that we wholeheartedly agree with.
Yeah.
So thanks for all your work on this, and thanks for sharing it with us. And then hopefully people can start to kind of like put things into perspective.
I hope so. I have to say, I was surprised myself how many ways, sort of beat by beat, we reproduced past fears and past reactions during the COVID pandemic.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And this will not be our last pandemic because that's not the way
That's
life
life
works.
on Earth. Yep.
Life on Earth with airlines,
Hmm.
is
Right, right.
that's the big factor there. So it's going to happen again. And are we going to learn anything? Are we going to do anything differently next time?
Well,
Yeah.
thankfully, we've got mRNA vaccines, so that's a good thing.
At least for the moment.
Yep. All
Yeah.
right. All right, so let's move on to discoveries of the week.
Okay, so for my discovery of the week, can I kick you back to something that is a little older?
Yeah, of
Sure.
course. Of
Yeah,
course.
you
Okay.
can pretend when you discovered it. We don't
Okay.
care.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, no, actually I did just discover another book recently, but
Hmm.
I think everybody should go read about the Luddites.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Hmm.
So there's this wonderful book that I actually read. I read this one years and years ago called Rebels Against the Future: The
Hmm.
Luddites and the War on Industrial Revolution, which is by Kirkpatrick Sale, and super readable, absolutely fascinating.
We'll put a link in the show notes, by the way.
What I actually found last week was another book on this topic, which is much more detailed. It's not as readable, but it's much more detailed, and it's by Brian Merchant. Came out in 2023.
Oh, I've heard about this one. Yeah.
Blood in the Machine: The Origins of the
Yes.
Rebellion Against Big Tech. Yep.
Yep.
So what is so fascinating to me about the Luddites, and I think these two studies do a really good job of pointing it out, is that, they weren't wrong. The new technology actually was going to destroy their lives. It
Hmm.
was going to upend everything. It's just that resisting it didn't do any good,
Right.
which I feel like is kind of where we may be in terms of AI. I mean, I think all of us who write books are super concerned
Hmm.
about what's happening. And I'm not sure if you're aware, there's a pending Anthropic settlement, class action
Yep.
settlement against all the writers whose books were harvested
Yep.
by their AI to train their engines. And 15 of my books are on that list.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So yeah, so all of us are nervous about what this means for what we do and what we love to do. But I think we have to take a bit of a lesson from the Luddites and realize that we're not going to stop it. I mean, it
Yeah.
would it would be great whenever I hear people talking about how important it is to control AI through legislation. I'm like, yeah, go read about the Luddites. That's not going to happen. Greed is going to win every single time. So, is the world that we live in better than the ones that the weavers of the Luddite rebellion lived in? Can't make that value judgment, but it's different and it's coming, and so we have to learn how to make a new life within it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I highly recommend reading up on that.
That's great. That's great. It makes me want to recommend a book back to you that I
Oh,
found
yes,
recently. It's
please.
called the AI Paradox.
Oh,
And it's basically how the more we tinker with AI, the more obvious it will be why it's a tool for us
yeah,
and not like it's
interesting.
going to own us because there are too many paradoxes in it
Hmm.
that actually break our way. It's a very interesting book.
Okay.
That's great. That's great.
Mhm.
All right, so mine is self-serving, and I discovered it Sunday night, which is our first independent, if the first independent, we don't know who this is, review of our book, which came out on Goodreads, which
Ah,
the reader must be one of the galley readers, the advanced
mhm.
reader copies, and 5 stars, which was nice.
That is nice.
And he said it was informative, well paced. We explained things well and reread passages and said, overall, I love this book. And he's a scientist, I think, a
Mhm.
microbiologist,
Mhm.
retired. And so that was my discovery of the week. And it made me very happy. So,
Yeah, this is our first time around the block, Susan, and I know you have a lot of experience, but so we're like learning every day. Like, how does it work? Who's
I
gonna
know.
will
It's
he
it's
like it?
it's a it's a very unsettling process to go through that whole pre-publication review thing because you don't know exactly who these people are or how they got the
mhm.
book or what qualifications they have.
Uh-huh.
Yep,
But there their ratings are for everyone to see.
yep.
Mhm.
Just got to deal with it. So our first one's out. That was my discovery of the week. So it was a good one. So that's happy.
Yeah. So my discovery of the week is related to the overall theme of our conversation. And something showed up in my YouTube algorithm, which is of Gen Z's learning about slow vacuuming. Uh, so,
Okay.
so vacuums work not when you're pushing it forward.
Hmm.
It sucks up the dust when you're bringing it back. And so apparently this is now, kind of hit the internet. And so there are these videos of these 20-something-year-olds spending an hour slowly vacuuming their rug in their loft in Brooklyn and comparing how much junk they get out of their Dyson. So
That's terrific.
there you go. I hope they feel better.
Is
Hey,
it, do they find
fewer
a greater
germs.
sense of peace from
Yeah,
that
they
too?
do.
It's
Yeah,
kind of
it
zen, right?
well, yes, I mean, I have to admit, I do enjoy a good Zen vacuuming, but it's not because I'm a germaphobe, like, so I think these two things are going together.
That's pretty awesome. All right. Well, thanks, Susan. We're going to let you go, but really appreciate the time. And it's great talking to you. Hopefully, we can talk again in the future.
Lovely talking to you both.
All
All right.
right.
Have a
Thanks so
great day.
much.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in. Thanks to our friends at Provoke the Truth for the music. If you have topics you want us to cover, please email us at disruptedscience@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. You can also keep up with developments at the Geyser, where you can subscribe to support our efforts. Thanks for listening. See you later.
Thanks all.